Unspoken Issues.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Unspoken Issues podcast. That is correct. And oh my goodness, were you expecting that at all?
No. No.
Oh, yeah. Look, we're going to be talking about Capwolf, ladies and gentlemen. Man, if there is something that came out of the 90s that still resonates to today, Capwolf is on the list, I think, in my opinion. The story is titled Man and Wolf. The 6 parts with an epilogue. We're talking about issues of Captain America 402 through 408. With me this evening, of course, from the Unspoken Decade, Dean Compton. Are you ready? You know, you're the one that unleashed the full moon. And
Yeah,
out come
right.
Capwolf.
I'm in charge of the fucking moon now. I'm the one who suggested this. I have all the good ideas, as has been established on this show. No, for real, this is one of those things that, like, I want to say that, like, I suggested it first off because our other guest today, Matthew Price, and I talk about it quite a bit for whatever reason. He's a big Cap guy. It's one of those things, so that in the 90s, like, as it happened in real time, I was just getting into comic books, and I harangued it and thought it was everything that was wrong with comic books. But I think, as it turns out, it's everything that's right with superhero comic books, and it has aged fantastically in a lot of ways. I think it's a lot of fun. I think we're going to have a lot of fun talking about it. I think it would be regarded as more of a classic if it came out in like 72 or 82 as opposed to 92. Because it's got this nice Bronze Age feel. Some stuff you just kind of have to, like, tilt your head at and go, okay, that's what we're doing then. But most of it is just a fun romp in a time when comic books were changing very, very quickly. What we thought about superheroes were changing very, very quickly. And also what we thought a horror / superhero comic book was changing quickly. You look at what Marvel was doing contemporarily, with the Midnight Suns, what was going on with some of the Vertigo books. It's just a neat thing to remind people that, like, listen, horror comic book stuff, horror superhero stuff can just be silly ass fun. We're just going to have some fun here. Also, let me say this, because I'm going to say this a lot during this thing. Wolverine's not a wolf guy. He's in it, not a wolf guy. Probably really shouldn't be here. And I'll leave it at that. I'll say it again later.
Okay. All right, then. Matthew Price.
All right, then. He's not a wolf guy.
Look, I want to hear you say you're going to say this again. So I assume when you bring it up again, you're going to at
What
least.
are the first 3 letters of his name?
I guess that's it. That's how we determine what animals are. That's why ants and anteaters are the same.
When you say he's not a wolf guy, I mean, do you mean like he's not a wolf man, or what do you mean exactly?
I mean, like, the other people involved in this storyline, like John Jameson, the Man Wolf.
Oh,
Wolf's Bane, Jack Russell, the werewolf.
Right.
The werewolf lady, I forget her name, like Ferocia, who they, like, tackle at the beginning of the very first part. They're all established like they're werewolf creatures or wolven creatures. Wolverine is not a wolf guy. He's not like a werewolf. His powers aren't derived from wolves. It's funny. I mean, like, a lot of stuff he does, like the superhuman senses, I guess we would more associate with a wolf than a Wolverine, although Wolverine's senses of smell are, like, highly, much beyond ours. But it's just funny. They're just like, listen, we want Wolverine in here. He's going to fucking be in here, and he is in here, and don't you ask about it. But I'm the guy who's going to ask about it.
Yeah.
They do establish it, by the way. It's not like he's just there. Like, they do
Yeah, I asked about it, too. It was in my notes. Okay, Matthew Price, Beating Bullet Comics, buddy. You're here for Capwolf.
We do talk about Capwolf more than any reasonable group should, probably already. It is, as Dean said, if this had been like a 1972 comic, people would probably be like, this is a classic. But because it was later in the 90s, I think it gets bagged on a lot. And, like, I even bagged on it as it came out. I was like, this is too silly. But in retrospect, I like it a lot more than I liked it as it's coming out live. I don't know why. It's aged well for me as well. Even though, like, there are still some, and I'm sure we'll get into some pretty screwy things that happen. It's something fun about it that, kind of mixes a certain kind of horror feel with a certain kind of Marvel Universe feel. And maybe neither of those really exist as much in modern comics now. The type of horror they're doing and the type of Marvel comics they're doing. So maybe that makes this kind of an outlier that gives it something kind of charming.
Matthew, were you picking this up off the shelf when it was coming out, or was this something that...
Yes.
Okay.
I was buying Cap monthly from way back in the 300s anyway. So yeah, this was what I was buying them off the shelf, and we just had issue 400 and Galactic Storm and all this very serious stuff about Avengers stuff. And then we follow it up with and now there's some werewolves. And here we go.
It was nice to get away from that played out 90s thing, which had dominated Galactic Storm. This whole, I swear, every third superhero comic was about this, should a superhero kill or not in the 90s. Every third issue of every comic, that's what it came down to. And that's what happened in Galactic Storm. So you're right. It was nice to do something a little more lighthearted, a little more fun. Also, for the record, I stole the last 3 issues. I stole the Infinity War one and parts 5 and 6.
Man.
I was picking them up off the shelf myself.
There is some law enforcement officer that listens to this comic book podcast.
I think the statute of limitations on petty theft and faithful art.
He's keeping track. What's crazy? He has a list because you, sir, have provided a list so far.
Let's see how high this number gets high enough to offset the statute of limitations. It would take a lot of $1.25 comics.
Well, they popped me in when I was in 8th grade, so I think we're going to call it even.
All right, then. All right.
There's an Infinity War crossover at the end of this. So it's the first issue is right after Galactic Storm, and then he gets his story in barely, and then there's Infinity War, right? So that's kind of funny too, just in the context of what's happening in Marvel in the 90s at the time.
And it's like a cosmic sandwich.
Yeah.
Cosmic bread sandwich. You're right at the beginning and right at the end.
Right.
And also it's important to note, just as a side note, when I got to interview Jim Starlin a few years back, and one of the things he pointed out with glee was that when he did Infinity Gauntlet, he had to beg people to participate. It was hard. Like Bob Budiansky brought Sleepwalker in and stuff. Guys that he had to beg to get to use Wolverine and stuff. The sales were great. It was an instant commercial and critical classic. So when the Infinity War came around, he's like, people wouldn't stop fucking bugging me to be a part of the Infinity War all of a sudden. So it's funny. I don't think there's an Infinity Gauntlet Cap issue crossover, but there is this one because Ralph Macchio, the editor, and Mark Gruenwald, who wrote Cap, but also, I think was basically the third in charge of Marvel at the time on the editorial side. They knew. Listen. They knew it cash. When to cash in when it was time. And we missed it last time. We're not going to miss it this. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's still a good story and everything. But if you can get more eyes on Captain America, which wasn't doing the best in sales around this time, the Infinity War was a way to do it. It was neat. It's just neat how that changed. We don't want anything to do with it. We really want it now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So this was on sale, according to Mike's Amazing World of Comics, May 5th of 1992. Our first issue hits the shelves. Written by Mark Gruenwald, penciled by Rick Levins, inked by a few inkers throughout these issues. Daniel Bulanati, Donald Hudson, Raymond Crissing, and Steve Alexandrov on inks. Lettered by Joseph Rosen and colored by Gina Going-Rainey. So we're going to talk about issues 402 through 404 first. I've got a little bit of a synopsis here, and then we'll break and we'll talk about the events that lead up to what's happening here. All right, Captain America trains. We open up the issue. He's training with D-Man, which, by the way, I'm just going to go ahead and put this out there. There's a little bit of a side story here with D-Man that's happening. I'm not including it in the synopsis. You guys feel free to talk about it here as we break. I don't feel that it's completely important to the story that Cap turns into a freaking werewolf.
Right. It is impressive how they were able to weave in and out their normal subplots with Captain America being a werewolf. I was impressed with that. Plus,
we have definitely a story at the end of each of these issues, and I think it continues on for a little bit about Diamondback. Is that right?
Yeah. Diamondback and Crossbones and how they're going to get caught up with the Night Shift and the Red Skull. Yeah, these were backups were very common in Captain America for some reason for a long time, right, Matt? This was just something that they sort of did. It was just the format.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it was all the time, but there definitely were a lot of them in the Gruenwald run. I couldn't tell you exactly when, but when Cap and Walker each were in the book, sometimes one of them would be the backup, or sometimes it'd be Battle Stars in the backup, or different stuff like that. So
okay, yeah. So the whole Diamondback stuff that's going on didn't make the cut for me. I didn't have a synopsis, but you guys feel free to bring it up if you think it's necessary. But main event here, Captain America's training with D-Man and Black Widow at Avengers Mansion, right? That's where they're at, somewhere. They're training. when Cap learns that a man was mauled by a large creature in the small town of Starksboro. He worries it may have been his friend and pilot, John Jameson. John was once transformed into a werewolf by an object called the Moon Gem or Moonstone. I think it's referred to interchangeably a couple times throughout this story. I'm going to land on Moon Gem here. Investigating, Cap finds that the Moon Gem has since turned to dust, yet the dust was stolen from a lab. As the mystery deepens, Cap seeks help from Dr. Druid and investigates the murder site. They are soon attacked by a werewolf and are surprised to see it wrangled by a masked man called Moon Hunter. Moon Hunter escapes with the werewolf, and Cap gives chase. In the aerial battle that ensues, Cap gets shot and falls to the ground. Elsewhere, Dr. Nightshade and the man that is behind all of this, the evil Dreadmond, discuss the power of the Moon Gem, as it has been now restored. Outside Nightshade's lab, Wolverine, who had been, which is funny, we opened the story with Wolverine. Not a wolf guy, but he's there. He had apparently been investigating this murder as well, or at least in this town. He was in the area, ends up fighting for his life outside the lab against some werewolves, but is soon subdued and captured by Moon Hunter. I say subdued. He was like shot like 4 times with a shotgun or something. He's like, okay, he's finally down. It was one of those
things where, like, if this happened in Wolverine's book, he'd have cleaned it up in like 3 panels, but since he's the guest, he can't handle it here.
Right. Shortly after that, Dr. Druid and Captain America arrive and are surrounded by werewolves, but manage to escape. As day breaks, the werewolves turn back into humans. Looking for answers, the pair head to what they believe is the mayor's house, but are met by Wolverine, who has been turned into a feral beast controlled by Dr. Nightshade. As she commands Wolverine to attack Captain America, the two engage in battle, which, by the way, I left it out of here, but Dr. Druid had made him invisible, so it was funny to see like people watching Wolverine just fight with nobody there. But anyway.
Right.
So
what a nice touch.
Yeah, I like it. The two engage in battle. As Wolverine has Cap pinned, Moon Hunter steps in and tranquilizes Cap, taking him back to Dr. Nightshade's lab, where she begins to administer a werewolf serum. So we know, we know that Dr. Nightshade is involved at least in something to do with these werewolves. And then, of course, as we learn, she is the one, and she's giving this serum to turn these people into werewolves. At least that's the indication that we have here at the beginning in the first 3 issues of the story. So that was issue 402 through 404, issues 402 through 404. And that's where we leave it there on a cliffhanger that Cap is strapped down and he is getting the serum injected into him. Let's go, Dean. I mean, this is our first 3 issues. We got Wolverine.
Yep.
We've got Dr. Druid.
Yep.
We've got Moon Hunter.
Yeah, Moon Hunter.
What a cast of characters here. What are your thoughts on these first 3 issues?
I like them. I think that, first off, it's pretty funny how they do a really good job of Cap like walking through the Spider-Man's world for like 5 minutes, where like he goes to talk to J. Jonah Jameson, who honestly, when he is portrayed outside of the Spider-Man books, it's so different. Like you usually like him. Like when he's in Daredevil or here, like you like him. He's like, come on, Cap, like I need you to find my boy. In Spider-Man books, he's like, just like a caricature of himself. And then he goes to like Dr. Connors' lab assistant, where the Moon Gem, was supposed to be, but it wasn't. There is a McDonald's bag on top of the filing cabinet there that I noticed, and I don't think that they thought I would, but I have a sharp eye for all things fast food related, and I like that. I was like, I feel like she was like, hey, Cap, are you hungry? Like, I think she wanted, to have a little more time with Cap, but he's a busy guy. He's getting on out of there. I think Matthew Price will be able to talk a little bit more about this, but like, the Dr. Druid Captain America Avengers relationship is quite contentious at this point, because I don't want to say Dr. Druid like mind controlled them so he could be in charge of the Avengers, but he was under the control of somebody else too. So it's neat to see that all coming back together, and they're trying to get Dr. Druid back into that Avengers circle. Although in like a year they're gonna like completely rip him away from that, and Warren Ellis is just gonna kill him. Wolverine, not a wolf guy, not the other wolf people are like drawn here because of the Moon Gem. He's just here. He's like, some people got killed. I better go check it out. Bro, you live in New York City. People get killed all the time. Like, what are you talking about? Why? What? You're like, but but these murders had some notoriety, like the werewolf murder. So
True.
I get why he was there, but like I said, I'm just never going to stop pointing this out. It's a fun Wolverine Captain America fight. That's always fun. I actually almost bought the Mike Zeck Captain America cover this last weekend, where Wolverine's like slicing the shield.
Yeah.
I did not, but I certainly thought about it. It's just fun to see those two guys romp. I'm not really sure why. Maybe it's because retcon turns out they're both like super soldiers fighting each other because Cap is like weapon 1 and he's weapon 10. But it's fun to see them roll around. You get to see Jack Russell the werewolf for a second. If there's any complaint I have, it's that I would like to have seen how that guy wound up here. He doesn't do much in the whole thing, and he's central to the whole thing, but he doesn't do much in it. I really like Werewolf by Night a lot. Dreadman the Druid is like a joke, so this is weird how good he is here. He has a good plan. And again, Matt can talk more about this. These are some I don't want to say forgotten Cap villains, but there's some lower level Cap villains that kind of get elevated here in a way that they probably. I don't know that if you had told me on the front end that you would take Nightshade and Dreadman as seriously as you do in this book, that I would have believed you. But they actually do a good job getting these C-listers over. It's always fun to see the Avengers Quinjet have some kind of aerial fight where Cap and Moonhunter go at it in the skies. Pretty good stuff. Dr. Druid apparently just needs 10 seconds to do anything. He's like, oh, no, I thought about how I don't want to bleed, so now I'm not. I'm like,
oh, man.
I wish I could just be I thought about how my back doesn't hurt anymore, and now it doesn't. So that was pretty handy stuff. All in all, a good setup, and it ends, you're halfway done, and it ends with the big cliffhanger. Cap gets injected with the serum, and we'll see how it goes from there.
Yeah. You mentioned Dreadman. Apparently, I pulled them up here on Marvel Wiki. These are Dreadman and Dr. Nightshade. Can't say I've ever read anything with them in it. I don't know if they've been mainstays or at least commonly appearing in Captain America comics. They've been around for a little bit. Strange Tales number 144, February of 66, is Dreadman Cromwell's first appearance. And Dr. Nightshade, first appearance, Captain America 164 from May of 1973. Thank you very much, marvel.fandom.com there. So these are two characters.
You're not on the Robotech page anymore?
Shh. Don't tell anybody my secrets.
Don't tell anybody about my Robotech ability. Don't tell anybody. That's where you find everything out.
So yeah, these are characters that have been around for a little bit, but again, like I said, I've never read anything with them in it. So this is the first story I've ever read with them. So I'm throwing it over to you there, Matthew Price. I mean, what's your thought on these first 3 issues?
I like them. I like that there's kind of a creeping dread, you open up and. Although maybe Wolverine's not a wolf guy, he does like to investigate these bestial. In other comics, like the McFarlane Spidey, there's a bestial murder. He's like, I got to go investigate it. Somehow he's drawn to these things. I don't know if he's thinking maybe there's another person who's losing control of their animal side, like I sometimes do. And thus, I feel I must try to help in these things. But it's the kind of thing he gets pulled into.
I thought you meant I as in you.
Yeah, I was like...
I sometimes lose control of my animal side.
That is also true. But... So I like sort of the building creeping dread. I like how much Mark Gruenwald just throws in everybody in the Marvel Universe to get involved in some way or another. Okay, so speaking about J. Jonah Jameson, I think here's how to think of it. If you know Dean, this will help. Normally, you talk to him. He's perfectly reasonable guy, but you start bringing up Jason Aaron Punisher, and he just loses his mind. He's like, "Get me pictures of Spider-Man," and you're like, "What's wrong with what's happened to him?" So I think that's what happens to Jonah Jameson.
I did lose my mind there. You're right.
Dean had a shovel at the end of that rant because he had just pitching dirt on this grave and just said, poor here lies Jason Aaron. Oh, wow.
It wasn't my finest moment, but I did say during the rant that I was being hyperbolic.
Yes.
You got to give me some,
Well, I think that's the way to look at it. Normally, Captain America comes in, Daredevil comes in, you're fine. You're just like, hey, Daredevil, what's up? Spider-Man comes in, you're like, Spider-Man.
I better hire a criminal to kill this guy.
That's a reasonable response to this action.
No, it's not.
No, he's not. You're not building a robot in your garage.
Right. I'm not gonna get the Scorpion after.
The savagery of the Aaron Slayers. Oh,
Dean,
man.
if you do it, don't put a camera on there that shows your face, because that
We might tip people off.
it kind of gives away. I think it's hard to get out of it once you've got the camera. Like, why did this robot attacking Jason Aaron have your face? You'd be like, I have no idea.
I don't know. Can I be the mayor now?
Oh, man.
So that was just a side point of how to maybe look at Jonah in this story. I love that Moonhunter has a mask with apparently the hair is part of the mask.
Right.
At first I thought he had a mask and that was his hair, but at some point that's not his hair. That's just crazy hair attached to the mask.
Like it's the luchador psychosis.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe it is a luchador thing. Okay, did I have any other interesting notes? I mean, Dr. Nightshade was in some early Cap stuff, and I think even maybe in some Kirby issues. Maybe question mark.
That's right.
So I like the fact that it is just sort of like it's a Rolodex of like Gruenwald just flips through the Rolodex of like, well, who hasn't been used in a while? Here we go, and they're in the story. I don't know. I enjoy it. So it does in some ways feel sort of like a Hammer film or a old Universal Monsters film mixed with like a very 90s style Marvel universe.
The Hammer Films thing is really spot on because there's a tremendous use of religious iconography in this. Like there's a whole thing where it's like they took out all of the crosses and stuff and they replaced it with Celtic stuff, and then later we see a lot of like there's this the Reese Stonehenge thing with the iconography around it. That feels very Hammer Films to me. That's an astute observation.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead. We'll hop into issues 405 through 407 here. At the lab, Dr. Nightshade injects Cap with the serum. Cap begins to transform into a werewolf, who will now be referred to as Capwolf. Breaks his restraints and escapes. Having escaped the battle at the mayor's house, Dr. Druid is drawn to a church where he finds the reconstituted moon gem. However, he is soon attacked by Dreadmond, and the two lock in a sort of mystical stare down. I'll go with that. Until Druid becomes distracted, and then he gets knocked out by Dreadmond. Now chained and covered with an iron mask, Druid may become a victim to a sacrificial ritual that Dreadmond has planned. Meanwhile, Moonhunter tries to capture Capwolf with his silver rope but fails. But then Capwolf encounters Nightshade, who manipulates and calms him with her pheromones.
Yeah.
And then puts him into the punishment pit. The pit is filled with other werewolves. I mean, it's a pit. It's really kind of all it is. It's not like there's too much punishment going on down there.
Have you ever heard it's like, hey, here, why don't you go in the pleasure pit for a minute? Like that, like this isn't Las Vegas. They don't do that here.
That's true. The pit is filled with other werewolves, but after a show of strength against a large white werewolf, Capwolf finds that now the others will follow him. In the pit is also X-Factor member Wolfsbane, who helps Capwolf try to talk. Capwolf bands all of the werewolves together and they escape. The pack then runs into Dr. Nightshade and Moonhunter. They learn that Dr. Nightshade has been using the blood of another captured werewolf, Jack Russell, to create a cure for those that have been turned into werewolves. At least that's her story. So Capwolf finally, he goes over, he frees Jack Russell and takes his new friends to confront Dreadmond at the church. Unable to stop him from completing the ritual, Capwolf watches as Dreadmond uses the blood of Dr. Druid and the Moon Gem to become a powerful being called Star Wolf. Soon, a large battle begins while Feral, another werewolf and current member of X-Force, is drawn to their location. The X-Force leader, Cable, has been tracking her, showing up just as the fight is about to start. Capwolf faces off with Starwolf, but Starwolf gains the upper hand until Cable jumps in to help, but he and Capwolf are caught off guard. They're not enough to defeat him, and they both appear to be crushed by a large rock. Elsewhere, the large white werewolf takes the still alive but seemingly unconscious Dr. Druid back to the lab, where Druid suddenly awakens and is able to break Wolverine and Manhunter from the mesmerization control of Dreadmond. Yes, mesmerization. The white werewolf demands an antidote from Nightshade, while Wolverine, he heads to the church. Finding both Cable and Capwolf still alive, Wolverine rescues them, and now the trio confronts Starwolf, securing the Moon Gem, returning the entity back into Dreadmond, and ending the fight. So there you go. That is issues 405 through 407. We'll talk about real quick about our wrap up here in a moment. But can I just say that Dr. Druid's throat was slit and he bled all over that? I'm like, holy, they killed him. They killed him. They did not kill him. But when I was reading this, I was like, he looks like he was legitimately killed, drained of blood.
Right.
It did not happen. That is not the case.
It's the first time in a superhero comic that's happened where somebody looked dead and it turned out they weren't.
You're being funny, aren't you?
I think Dr. Druid was himself killed before and came back, and the only thing that happened to him was he wasn't bald anymore.
He was
after
young.
he came back.
Oh, they mentioned that in this book. Because he looks at him, Cap looks at him and it's like, oh yeah, I've been through a bit of a transformation or something along those lines. Like, it's kind of like, yeah. So he's obviously been through something.
Here's a question I had that maybe you guys read more closely. What was the plan if Dr. Druid didn't show up?
Oh, yeah. That's a good question.
I don't know. There doesn't seem... Maybe they knew he was gonna. He wasn't too far away because he was in Boston. Maybe they were gonna go get him at some point. But yeah,
it just sort of seemed like if Cap doesn't randomly not get a hold of Doctor Strange, you get this other guy.
Right.
What is your plan? How does your plan work?
How does this happen?
Is it different, or do you just like audible the plan? Like, oh, Dr. Druid's here, so obviously I want to become a Star Wolf.
It's already a weird plan though, because they're like, listen, I got to turn this town full of werewolves. I'm never really sure why. Like,
I don't understand the whole plan. To be fair,
you could have just done the Star Wolf thing without like that. Also, but I do like that. Like, he got to the town by selling them a bill of goods. He's like, listen, I'm going to the economy.
I like that. Yeah, I like it, but I don't know what his point was.
I have no idea. Maybe just like
I'm going to turn you on to werewolves with a step 2 question mark, step 3 profit.
Right.
Like, yeah.
He doesn't have a good plan. It just happened to be okay, right? Like, the Red Skull would have had like 45 different contingencies ready to go. That's why he's a C-lister.
My plan is turn all these guys into werewolves and wait and see what happens.
Eventually, I'll turn into the Star Wolf, I guess. I don't know.
We'll see.
Just only a matter of time. I think that was my big note. Look, we get some characters in these 3 issues too. That we got Cable showing up here. I mean, we had Wolverine in the beginning of this. Cable is now involved for like a cup of coffee almost. It's like, hey,
why not?
Why not?
In my head, he was in it more, but he's not in it very much.
He's not in it very much at all. But like the idea that he's just on paper, it's like, so I'm going to do this story where this guy's going to turn a whole town into werewolves just because, and then he'll become the Star God werewolf later. Cap's going to fight him with Dr. Druid, and he's going to attract all the wolf guys there and Wolverine. And at the end, Cable's going to show up and help.
I don't know if Furio's actually a werewolf, but she's wolfish enough.
Well, they do a part in the moon. The moon gym is attracting all the wolf people. That's why Wolfsbane's there, and that's why Furiel starts to go. Because, like, everybody, because she asked Cap, did you hear the call or whatever?
Right.
That's why she had to just go. But it does show us that Cable, as much as I love him, wow, what a piece of shit. Like, he's like, I put a tracker in everybody at X-Force. Bro, these are humans, and they have human rights. You cannot just track people wherever they go. That's
you have to just look at their cell phone data.
Right, thank you. You need a warrant for that. You need an X warrant, right? Like, not just a regular warrant, but you need Professor X himself to sign this motherfucker.
Maybe Furiel was just on his family plan, and so...
But he's just like, yeah, good thing I put a tracker on Idiot X. Like, Richter doesn't know that. I promise you, Richter would not enjoy that if he knew this.
I also think it's kind of funny that he just shoots her with a tranquilizer and is like, I'm going to leave you by this sign outside of town while I go deal with this. I don't need your help. I'm just going to knock you out.
I don't care what you're doing here. I don't want to hear anything from you. I'll go find out on my own. Your testimony is irrelevant, as is your personhood, as evidenced by the fact that
I mean, it's kind of like a 1970s TV dad or something. You wait here, little lady. I'm going to go find out what's going on in this town.
What is the problem here?
I feel kind of similar, like about Wolfsbane. Wolfsbane, she does nothing. She's a really cool character.
Yeah.
Who's involved in X Factor at the time. A really good.
And her team doesn't come looking for her at all.
Nope.
No, they don't. Cable at least cares. I guess that's the thing. Unlike his Uncle Havoc doesn't give a shit.
Apparently not.
Havoc's like, listen, whatever. But Cable's
like, he's like, she's a grown woman. I don't know. Do what you want.
Could be a little column A, a little column B.
So yeah, I don't know if I skipped over anybody, but yeah, that one my big note was I don't know how the plan works if Druid doesn't show up. I thought the Captain America wolf talk was a little much, took me out of it a little bit. I don't know if it would have been better if it was just captions or if it just had regular thought bubbles, but like having the hard to talk, me, half wolf man, was a little much for me. Maybe that's not fair. Moon Hunter, it was hard to get a handle on. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? I guess he's being controlled, but at some points it seems like he's just being a jerk to be a jerk. And then he's like at the end, like, no, I'm not a jerk. I'm a good dude.
Yeah, supposedly Dreadmond is controlling them, right? Like, or at least influencing them in some way. Is that what's put across in the book?
Seemingly. Right. I think it probably makes sense. It just he was a little all over the place in his characterization, it felt like.
Yeah. Well,
but I mean, maybe he was sometimes hypnotized and sometimes not.
Like I said, he unloaded on Wolverine. Like, it was just like, I mean, you don't just, maybe Wolverine's reputation precedes him. I'm sure it does. That's why he's in the book. But I mean, he's like,
not because he's a wolf guy. That's not why.
Really? Is that the case? I mean, he unloads that shotgun on him. So I feel like Moon Hunter. Yeah. And this is Moon Hunter's first appearance, correct? He wasn't in anything prior to this. Do you guys know?
I don't know. He very easily could have been a 70s guy.
We got to look this up. That mask, there's no way. That mask, I don't know. It looks so 90s to me. I'm looking it up.
No, it does. I'm just saying it wouldn't be beyond Gruenwald to be like, here's a guy who appeared in 3 panels of Werewolf by Night. And
right. It feels like he's filling the Moon Knight role here.
Okay.
You know, but but you know, you can't use Moon Knight for this because Moon Hunter's going to go on to be a part of the book for a little bit, and you know, Moon Knight's doing his own thing, is so I feel like he fills that role. I don't know if he came from I don't know if he's an old character or not, but he feels like he could be from a Moon Knight or from Werewolf by Night. A Bizarre Adventures.
First appearance was 402. Okay. All right. All appearances. Let's see. He's got a total of 24. So he's out of the, I mean, my goodness, a majority of these are all in the 400s of Captain America. Sure. All the way up
to his legit first appearance.
According to this, yes. So
buy it now, folks.
Get it. You might be able
for
back issue tip.
Pretty Moon Hunter reboot.
His second to last appearance was Captain America Volume 1, 443. And I don't know if you remember the cover to that one. I mean, it has Cap has learned he has 24 hours left to live. And it has a big hourglass on the back of it. That came out in 95? So yeah, and then there's one more appearance after that in something called Captain America the Legend Volume 1, number 1.
Get ready for that Moon Hunter omnibus.
Please.
I feel like there was something else I was thinking, but I may have forgotten it. Maybe it was
okay.
The Moon Gem has caused me to.
I understand.
Which I guess Cable just destroyed it, but then it was
stepped on it.
But it was just before.
So I was gonna say,
did he destroy it, or did he
doesn't necessarily mean that it's over.
Right. I guess it's gonna get put back in a filing cabinet. That's the most important thing.
I mean, I like it. I think the ending is a little hectic. Like, it just starts being like a lot of stuff is happening, but that is very 90s Marvel. Like, let's just throw a bunch of people in here. Some of them are going to be on the cover. Some of them aren't going to have that much to do with the story, maybe, but a lot is happening. Like, I think the first 3 are better at setting the mood. I think the last 3 are exciting, but maybe, it just feels maybe a little rushed as far as the pacing of it, but I still enjoy it.
And you're right, they do feel rushed, and in the end, there's the Deus Ex Machina of Cable showing. Like, if he doesn't show up, everything goes the other way, but at the same time, you get to see the cover with him being like, back off, Furface. Obviously, I stole that. How could I not? I have any money. I needed this in my life. Cable versus Capwolf.
I thought you just meant you stole the saying. You just went around saying back off for a face to people.
I should start saying it. Back off for a face.
People are like, I just shaved this morning.
It would confuse a lot of people.
It really would.
It would definitely.
They'd be like, what are you talking about? Have you not read Captain America?
It's like, see, talking to me, I'm like, hey, listen, obviously you never read Man of Wolf. Hello. It's a classic.
Oh, I guess what I was going to say is we don't always talk a ton about the art, but I think Rick Levins does a pretty good job here in a thing with a billion characters, half of whom are wolves, like differentiating between which wolf guy is which wolf guy. and keeping the action moving pretty good. I think he does a good job of it. He was less splashy than maybe some of the people that were getting a lot of recognition around this era. But I think the storytelling in this, for something that could be, not that there aren't moments that's confusing, but it's not because of the art. I think he does a good job keeping everything moving in a pretty clear way as far as what location are we in? Who are these people? Which wolf guy is talking right now?
Yeah, that's that's essential to what's happening in this book with all these people. You've got to try and keep it easy for the reader to understand who, especially with werewolves. I mean, you could have just made them all the same. You didn't. You took the care in making sure that your reader understands what's going on here. So yeah, props to Rick Levins for what he did here.
Most books with a werewolf have like a werewolf, and this has like 30 or whatever.
Right, dude. Right.
I think in the next Captain America storyline, he has to fight like a million of his bad guys at once, like Stiltman and Batrock and Deathwing and all kinds of people. Rick Levins does a great job on that. You're talking about like drawing like a whole bunch of different guys, and I remember like getting it because like there's a scene where like they're fighting in a ring and like Stiltman steps in it. He puts a hole in it for some reason. But yeah, Rick Levins I think is very underrated. I don't know that he did a ton after this Captain America run, but I've always liked his work here.
I mainly know him from Cap and I think Exo Man of War are the main things I know him from.
Okay.
What is that door made of that's holding Wolverine back? Like Wolverine has like unbreakable sharp ass adamantium claws, and he's like, "Let me out! I swear."
It's like old-timey jail cell.
So he doesn't know that his claws are unbreakable.
There you go. Okay.
I guess you get the no prize.
Yeah, it's my no prize. Well, we're just going to throw mesmerized in as a reason for anything that doesn't make a ton of sense.
Anything that happens here, right?
I love it.
I do find it just odd though that like he even mesmerized, he wouldn't eventually try the door because he just wanted to fight and stuff.
Just try the door.
right. It's like, hey, just like slice it open.
It's not even locked.
There's no door there. Actually, Treadman has us all fooled with his incredible mind powers. That's the other thing. I was gonna say this. Like Treadman is a big dork. Like, what a dumbass. Like, he really tries to, like, lord it over all this stuff. But not only does his plan not work, but he's like, ha, now I'm the Star Wolf. And what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't, what are you going to do? I want some petty vengeance? Like, bro, like, it would be like you're mad because your girlfriend broke up with you, so you get, like, the power of the Phoenix to do something about it. That seems like a lot. Like, you could just, like, not. You know, I mean, you already have a town full of werewolves. Like, you know, like you don't need all this. You know, I mean, he's just a big dork, though. He's pretty funny.
That's all right.
Nightshade is so funny. She's like, I hate him. I gotta get away. Wayne don't like Captain America either. I helped everybody. I helped, like, but you did it, but I helped.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she definitely does not get any. Like at the end, she's like, I helped you guys. Like, take her away. Doesn't matter.
Right. I'm sure you're guilty of some crime somewhere.
We don't even really know what this plan was, but just arrest her.
Just arrest her. Yeah,
you can't just inject people with werewolf stuff. I'm pretty sure you just can't.
How about that mayor, too? Who's like in his bathrobe looking all pudgy and stuff? Just being like, I can't remember. I think he looks like a Muppet from the Dark Crystal who had like a staff or something. But like, you know, just bald. He's like, oh yeah, we'll do whatever we can to help you with these crimes. I'm pretty sure all the bad guys are already dead, though. There's something with the mayor. There's something going on in this town.
Quick wrap up.
Yeah.
Pretty sure the murderers are dead. Yep. Yeah. See you, everybody. Good night.
Right. So just go on and get on out of here, Captain America and Wolfsbane and Jack Russell.
Don't look further into this.
Jack Russell, the werewolf who will like ride away barefoot on a motorcycle. Pretty impressive.
Who was that he was with?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Because I was like, is this a Werewolf by Night character? He just hopped on this guy's motorcycle.
I was wondering about that.
Around this time, I can't remember if it's right before or right after, around the same time, he has a story in Marvel Comics Presents. So maybe it's a guy who was like, you know, was a supporting character from that. Maybe it's a supporting character from back in the 70s. Like, if you know who he is, it matters. But, you know, if you don't, you know, you don't.
I was just like, just shows up. Like, who called him to show up for that? Did Cap, like, all right, who's in your contacts?
Yeah, like, what the
Jack
fuck?
Russell?
I personally think that it's the guy from Madison Square Garden.
Oh man, there he is.
He has a lot of like friends, and Werewolf by Night is one of them. That guy is 7, and so is Werewolf by Night. So he was like, "Hey man, I was gonna stab some people at Madison Square Garden today, but you need me. I'm gonna get on my chopper and I'm gonna head up to Massachusetts."
The dude's wiki is just getting longer and longer. Like, oh man, yeah. I was just thinking of Star Wolf here. I don't even know what his power set is. Like, I mean, he shows up. He looks cool. He looks cool as hell.
It does nothing, basically.
Does nothing. I think there's
his
some
only vulnerability out there for everyone for Captain just like rip off. So, I mean, the old Thanos Infinity Gauntlet trick, right? Like, you shouldn't have left your MacGuffin out.
Yeah.
I think that ties back into like in the 70s. They tried to get Man-Wolf over as like its own thing. Like I want to say he had a run in like Marvel Premiere or Creatures on the Loose or some shit.
Creatures on the Loose sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. And they wanted to get him over as his own thing. It didn't work, So I think that like that whole thing ties into that because he wound up. I don't remember the particulars because I haven't read about. I've never read it. I've only read about it. But like he wound up some like swords and spaceship stuff.
Oh yeah, there's a whole thing that happens to that where he's sort of like Wolfman Conan in space, right?
Yeah. John Wolfman of Mars, right?
Yeah.
Right? like very, very much so, and it gets very cosmic at times, and I think this ties back into that. But again, I haven't done enough research on it as I probably should have.
And then at the end, he's like, "No, y'all are too wacky for me. I'm gonna go work at a Dairy Queen."
Right.
There is a band called Star Wolf. Just throwing that out there. I don't know. I've never heard of them. I just did a check because I was like, is there anything like a Marvel fandom wiki page for Star Wolf? Did he come back ever? I don't think so. I need to check Robotech right now. Hold on just a moment. Anyway, Star Wolf.
He might have joined. You know what? He might have joined Cyberforce for a minute, Jesse.
Dude,
some of those later issues get kind of wonky. They're doing whatever they want. Can you imagine that? J. Jonah Jameson, Man-Wolf, and Cyberforce making out with Ballistic?
I can imagine it right now. That's beautiful.
That didn't sound creepy, Jesse. There's not a Cable appearance I wasn't into at the time. I do like that Captain America's like, that guy's from X-Force. It's supposed to be a secret. Like, everybody knows, though, every time he guest stars in anything, they're like, he's from X-Force. And which led me to this question, too. When did everybody in the Marvel Universe know that they were no longer the New Mutants and now they were X-Force? Like, because you figured it would take a while to get around. Like, if you were the champions on the West Coast, like, they might show like, oh, it's the New Mutants. We're X-Force now. I wonder, how do those name changes, which happen frequently in superhero comics, how do people get that information? How does it get
they filed for the website.
Right.
That's gotta be.
They just look up the ICANN who is, and they're like, okay, Xforce.net, Cable has that.
Right,
I guess these guys are X-Force now.
Like, there would be a lot of corrections in the beginning. Like, everybody that they do a crossover with would be like, hey, it's the New Mutants. No, we're X-Force now. Right. Every single time that they run into another team.
But some of it would be certain people's faults. Like, if you're Kitty Pryde and somebody gets your name wrong, that's your fucking fault. You've been Ariel, Sprite, Shadowcat, Kitty Pryde. Lady,
right, dude.
Listen. At some
Pick
point,
one.
Listen. Even if you don't pick one, other people are gonna.
Yeah. All right, 408, issue 408. Capwolf. He's part cow.
Capwolf was different when he became a cat, which is not as good a story, but horrifying in its own way.
Capwolf brings the unconscious Dreadman to the lab where Dr. Nightshade and Dr. Druid are waiting. Nightshade administers an antidote to the white werewolf, transforming it into John Jameson. As Capwolf is about to receive the antidote, a dark version of Captain America from the Infinity War crossover bursts in, attempting to attack him. However, Nightshade manages to give Capwolf the antidote just in time, and he starts changing back to his normal self. Cap defeats the doppelganger, and the rest of the town of Starksboro receives the antidote, turning them all back into humans. John Jameson resigns as Cap's pilot at the end of this, feeling that being involved with Cap and other heroes is not what he currently needs. And that is how we wrap things up in our epilogue here of Captain America, Man and Wolf. So it's Capwolf. This is not the usual story we were getting in the Captain America book. This is different.
Well, I mean, I think it was pretty different from just about everything that was going on in the Marvel universe at this time. It feels anachronistic. It doesn't feel like it should be from like 92, 93. It feels like it should be much earlier. I obviously like it a lot, you know. I mean, it's just fun. And there's a reason that like there's a Marvel Legends Capwolf now, and there's a Capwolf Funko Pop. It's just because it's just pure silly fun. I think my favorite panel though happens in this way. Two favorite panels. The one where like the Captain America doppelganger like just jumps through the wall and he's just like laughing maniacally. Like here's like what is happening? Like it's just funny. It's like ah. And he's got that super sharp shield.
Like Kool-Aid Man.
Oh yeah,
right.
Oh yeah.
like Randy
why
Savage.
are you even here?
It's just crazy.
Just
But
you guys
got that sharp shield, and I love that thing. But also when like he's choking Cap, and Cap's like reverting, and for a second Cap looks like he's like losing his hair, but there's still too much hair, and it looks like Cap like accidentally fell asleep for like 30 years, and he's just waking up like it's Rip Van Rogers. And like I just and he's just like and he's got his eyes closed, and then of course Cap too hard on himself like killed. He goes, he's not alive, so you don't have to worry about it. So he kills him. He's like, that was sloppy and uncharacteristically brutal. I don't think you're supposed to say uncharacteristically about yourself. Like that's kind of a funny thing. Normally other people are like that's uncharacteristic of you, but look, Cap took care of business. It's nice to get a little Infinity War as a treat here to see what Cap, what was immediately in store for Cap. You get a really fun Falcon back up here, and the Falcon and Captain America are going to team back up for a little bit, which I always like seeing them together. It is what it says, like the final fate of Capwolf, because I don't know that he's been back since. Although I would read with the right creative team, I would pick up a Capwolf miniseries.
Breaking news. So we had recorded this on August 2nd, 2023, and the day after, Matt sends us a picture of what appears to be a release that is titled Captain America Howls Onto the Battlefields of World War II in Capwolf and the Howling Commandos. I'll read the article. This is dated August 3rd, 2023. In the early 90s, Steve Rogers transformed into Capwolf in writer Mark Gruenwald and artist Rick Levin's unforgettable Man and Wolf story arc. Now, over 30 years later, Capwolf is back in his own limited series, Capwolf and the Howling Commandos. Written by Stephanie Phillips and drawn by Carlos Magno, the 4-issue limited series will tell an all-new story where Steve becomes a terrifying werewolf during an early World War II mission. Luckily, his fiercest allies are by his side, Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos. After years of combat, this elite squad of soldiers thought they've seen it all, but this might be their wildest adventure yet as the series captures the spirit of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's classic wartime storytelling with a modern mystical twist. When Captain America is transformed into a werewolf on the front lines of World War II, he'll need the help of the Howling Commandos to take down a band of Nazi cultists who intend to use supernatural forces to turn the tide of battle. But can Cap control the skeptical, jaded commandos when he can barely control himself?
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
I hear you.
I kind of wonder if like Nick Spencer threw him back in there just because he went through and threw a lot of stuff back in there for a minute, but
it's possible. Better than I would because you're a much bigger Cap fan. It's possible because they did like Hearts of Darkness 2, even though there was already a sequel to it called Dark Design. Like they did that in an issue of Ghost Rider, I want to say, where like Punisher and Wolverine got back together with him, with Danny Ketch or whatever. So it's entirely possible somebody did it as a one-off. This is an era for that, man. You've got the recent Warlock miniseries, the Danny Ketch Ghost Rider. I can't remember. I heard about something else that's going to be like 90s-centric miniseries coming out soon too. So.
It does feel kind of like a 70s story, but then you've got all these 90s characters that are, doing their 90s thing in it, which makes it kind of fun. It's always fun to see Cable show up, even though he really is just getting a cup of coffee in this thing. Yeah, I enjoy it. There's not a lot like it, really. Even sort of the Marvel horror stuff usually doesn't let itself be this silly. The actual Werewolf by Night, Ghost Rider, stuff like that. or if it does, sometimes it's unintentionally.
I was gonna say a lot of that stuff, like Morbius, can be very unintentionally silly, like the '70s black and white stuff, like we talked about, where he like kills that cabbie.
Yeah, just kills the cabbie for no reason. Like, here, give me a ride. Okay, guess I'll kill you. I think I'm the hero of this book, though. I don't know.
He's better than the Cult of the Blood Moon or whatever he was fighting at the time, and it's entertaining, but it's very. But yeah, Marvel, you're right. Marvel horror tries to take itself seriously. Usually, if it's silly, it's unintentionally so.
So yeah, I mean, like I said, at the time, I was like, this is too silly for me. No. Even though I bought them because I was buying all the caps. But then as the years have gone by, I'm like, yeah, Capwolf, man, it's kind of fun. I should read that again. So I think Gruenwald would kind of do like, okay, we're serious time, guys. You know, what if Captain America gets fired and we're going to examine what that looks like and what does that mean for the symbolism of the country and da. And then at the end, he's like, in the next story, it's like, what if Captain America turned into a 12-year-old boy? And that's, you know, like he just would kind of, there was a mix up of like, okay, we're going to be real serious. Okay, now we're going to kind of examine sort of the goofiness of comics. So there was I think probably intentionally, he would be like, okay, serious time. Okay, let's ease up on the gas a little bit. Let's give us a little bit of something else.
Okay, all right.
I want to ask a question about Mark Gruenwald to y'all, and I don't want this to sound disrespectful, because everybody loves him. I love him, what have you. But do you think, like, when you go back and look at, like, Cap sales the last, like, 4 or 5 years he was on the book, maybe 3 or 4 years, should he have been removed from the book before he was? Was it possible that they didn't because he was so entrenched in the company? I mean, I'm not trying to have a hot take here, but like, it sounds like the creative and commercial apex of his tenure was much earlier than this. And I'm just wondering, you know, especially you, Matt, because like, I know you keep up with this stuff better.
I would have to go back
is that
and
a possibility? You know, I mean, because it seems like other people would have been like removed, or there might have been a shakeup at some point. It's also possible nobody really wanted to do Cap on a regular basis.
Because, like, did stuff like throwing Wolverine on the cover, did that juice it? Did that buy him some, you know, I mean, I don't know. Because he would do stuff like, hey, here's a guest star, or hey, here's a different costume, or here's a new motorcycle, or what, you know, he would throw stuff on the covers, and I don't know if stuff like that, you know, boosted enough either on the newsstand or in direct sales to like say, well, let's give him another year. Because I don't think he was taken off until he said, okay, I'm ready to be taken off of it.
Right.
And maybe they just thought, well, it's gonna sell about this. And I mean, as well regarded as the Wade and Garney stuff was, it wasn't like that sold hugely more. I think it sold a little more. We would have to go back and probably.
No, you're right. You're right. It did not cause us. It causes significant critical buzz, but it did not cause a significant sales buzz. 50,000 copies, I want to say, which is big now, but at the time, you're talking about from 350 to 400, or like 3 to 350.
So I don't know that it would have made a huge difference if they'd moved him a year or two earlier necessarily, unless it was something like, oh, Jim Lee's going to come on the book, but like Jim Lee did a cover, you know, so I'm betting, I don't know if I can even find this out, but I have a feeling like there'd be like sales might be going down like, oh, there's a Jim Lee cover. Anything like that. Oh, here's Wolverine. I mean, I bet he probably had enough little tricks to juice it up that his average stayed above wherever it needed to be.
I mean, also, it's important to know that, like, you know, we're all three of us are pretty big sports fans, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but like, Dusty Baker's going to manage the Astros until he doesn't want to anymore. You know what I mean? They won a World Series. They've been very successful. Everybody likes him, and like, sometimes you can have enough success early on to, you know. Even when things later on aren't quite as successful, it's kind of, people don't really want to boot you out because you've kind of earned that right. Like you know, like, listen, you're an OU guy. Bob Stoops could coach Oklahoma next year if he wanted to. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like, and if he went 7-5, the people would not be as mad as if Venables went 7-5.
Because he's just earned more of goodwill, perhaps.
Right. You know, so that may be part. And I don't want to take that away. But if that is the case, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just interesting, you know, when you see some other shakeups that happen. But it's so funny to say now, but in 1992, Captain America was seen as, at least in the comic book stores, a fairly dead brand. This is something you could sell underwear to kids. You know, you could sell.
Yeah, but see, I remember like Streets of Poison being kind of a hot book, you know, and that wasn't that long before this. And like when they introduced Crossbones, it was kind of a hot book for a little bit. So I think he did enough things along the way that would just, you know what I mean? And I'd have to look at the actual numbers to know if that's true or if I'm just making it up. But
That makes
I seen
sense.
like from time to time, like it would be like, oh no, it's cold, and he'd be like, okay, let's throw Cable in there, let's see what that does, or
Right.
let's do this drug storyline, let's see what that does.
Too, it's not like people weren't lining up to do the book. Rob Liefeld later would, and the book was probably going to do what it was going to do. Captain America in 1992-93 isn't what Captain America is in 2023 as far as awareness in comic books, but also like greater awareness.
Sure.
I wish I had much of an opinion as to Gruenwald on Captain America. Unfortunately, I haven't read much. But I will tell you that, I mean, I was looking at his run. I mean, he started, I think Mike's Amazing World of Comics had his first comic in 85 for Captain America. Yeah. And last comic, he wraps it up in 95. He's doing other stuff in between here, but it's not like he's taking big breaks at all.
I mean, he's like the second or third in charge of the whole freaking company for most of this period. He's editing like 4 or 5 other books, doing a few miniseries, and also, like, from what I understand, he was like on a bowling team and did improv and like did all this, like was apparently had energy that I could only dream of having.
Wow, crazy. We've got 3 villains. I'm gonna call them villains. They may have been mesmerized, but we've got Moonhunter, we've got Nightshade, we've got Dreadmond. Okay. Now, as far as character design goes, I want you to rank them 1, 2, or 3. 1 being the best, 3 being the worst out of those 3. So who's got the best character design in this book? Moonhunter, Nightshade, or Dreadmond?
Nightshade.
Okay. All right. Next up, who would that be? Moonhunter or Dreadmond?
Moonhunter.
All
yeah,
right,
I agree, Moonhunter. Because Dreadmond's is just dumb. Moonhunter looks ridiculous, but Dreadmond's is just kind of like...
All right.
Nightshade looks
boring and stupid. I agree, yeah.
Nightshade looks like she is like a lady that you would fight and beat him up like Double Dragon or Final Fight.
Yes, sir.
Like she would be, she might be a boss, but she's definitely at the very least one of those ladies that like, you get to fight. Moonhunter, kind of like what Matt said, it looks stupid, but it's got charm. Like I like there's stuff there, I mean, I can feel it or something. Dreadmond just looks dumb. It looks like the eggplant emoji didn't know when to stop. It kept going. Didn't understand.
Nightshade, I think, if you were captured by werewolves and taken to a dungeon where something was going to happen to you, and she was there, you'd be like, that seems about right.
That fits.
Right, yeah. You'd also be like, I guess this could be worse. She's an attractive lady. Maybe something not so terrible is about to happen. You'd be wrong.
I'm scared, but yeah, she's interesting to look at.
Yeah, but like Dreadmond just looks dumb, man.
He looks so dumb. I'm not sure how Nightshade ended up working for him. I'm not sure how he was like, hey, come work for me. She's like, you look like a dork.
Right. It's like a plum thumb. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck is this?
That's why he wanted to turn into Starwolf, because he just looked like such a dork.
Right.
Starwolf actually looked kind of cool.
I should have. Yeah, I was going to say I should have included Starwolf on this thing because as far as design goes, that's up there. I mean, it looked way better in Dreadmond. So,
well, sure. I mean, listen, I'm not trying to diminish anything here, but if you make anybody look like the freaking Galaxy, it's going to be cool. Yeah. Like, Vance Astro looks cool, Starboy looks cool, Eternity looks cool. Like, they all just look cool.
And a werewolf on top of that.
Right. He's in a wolf's head. Shit. Oh no! What if you gave him a big gun?
He looks awesome. He was about as effective as Shockmaster,
right?
As it turned out.
Both of them, the forgers of their own tomb.
Yes, but he looked great for a minute.
Oh man! My final note, and then I'll turn it over to you guys here. Cap gets turned into a werewolf. And one of the things that I definitely associate with Captain America is leadership and, the fight for justice. And, his sense of nobility, I guess, is probably the best
dedication to the ideals of America,
right. And he does mention, you said, when he does kill that doppelganger, it was uncharacteristically brutal of him. And that is something that happens to you when you become a werewolf. You may lose control and accidentally tear somebody's head off.
Yeah, but don't listen to him spout that bullshit because he once decapitated Baron Blood with his shield. So he's
okay. All right.
Also not human.
Okay.
True. But still brutal.
Still brutal, though. Yeah.
One thing that you can see here, Cap gets turned into a werewolf, what does he try to do? He still holds those core values.
Tries to get them to register to vote, I think, is what's happening there.
Man, Capwolf says, vote this Tuesday.
He's signing them up for the USO.
But yeah, I mean, again, it's just a great it's a great story that Cap's, even though he's changed physically, those senses of, nobility and everything else that comes with it are still there. So I think it's still a great Cap story when you look at it, because he leads in this book. He gets all these werewolves together and he's like, let's go. We're going to take this guy down. It's great. So there you go. I'll let you go, Dean. What are your thoughts? Anything left unsaid, I should say, on your side of things?
To piggyback off that, what I like too is like when he does try and lead, he doesn't go down there. He's like, I don't really want to fight. Maybe we can do this without fighting, because Cap just has that in his heart. He'd rather not fight. But when he does, he takes care of business. This is also one of the only times that like the alpha thing would actually work, because one of the mistakes that people make about like the alpha wolf thing is like it's not really how wolves act out in like the wild. It's something that happens when wolves are like pinned up. So this makes sense. The one who was in charge gets beaten by the guy. It has to happen that way. So I like seeing something scientifically accurate in a thing about mystic werewolves. That was interesting. I really enjoy how like his super soldier serum throws everything off, and then Dreadman's like an asshole about it. Remember, Nightshade's like, I guess the super soldier serum made him stronger than the others. Like, I didn't know. He's like, well, you should have accounted for it, bro. They couldn't remake that ever. What do you mean she's gonna account for it? It's not a box of Cheerios. The ingredients aren't on the side of like a box. You should have broken down the super soldier serum and known everything that was in it and known exactly what would happen. Come on, that's why Dreadman sucks. That's like nobody likes him.
Dreadman is a terrible boss. I think we can go ahead and.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
of supervillains, even among supervillains, he's a bad boss.
Not good.
Right. At least Dr. Doom has a health plan. Like, there's no way Dreadman does. Dreadman's like, just throwing you like some ointment and Band-Aids. Your arm is hanging off. It's like, I don't have time.
You should have thought of that.
You should have thought of that. Overall, though, the last issue is a lot, is a lot of fun. It wraps everything up. Like I said, you get a little Infinity War as a treat. I think, honestly, this was one of the best ways to get people interested in the Infinity War. Just give them a little bit and see if they want the rest. It honestly is it's just very silly fun. And we've said that a lot, and just almost as many times as I said that Wolverine's not a wolf guy. It comes back to this idea that, like, comic books are called comic books. And a lot of times you forget the comic part. And sometimes that could be, like, over the top, like if you're reading, Dynamite or Bugs Bunny or something, something, or even, like, Peter Bag's Hate. Something that's supposed to be very funny, as over the top. And sometimes things are supposed to be, like, silly fun. And this really does a good job of making sure that you never stop having fun. You never stop, whether it's adventure fun or just like you're just like double taken, or you're just enjoying some of the great fight scenes and artwork. It never takes itself too seriously. It's a neat piece of Captain America history that I think will live as long as there's a Captain America. People will probably be like, remember that time he was a werewolf? It's going to be one of those things, like much like when Superman died. Like, to this day, people are like, remember when Superman died? And I think everybody will talk about that for as long as there's Superman. This is sort of the same thing for Cap. Just a lot of fun, something to just show somebody who's like, especially nowadays, but even at the time, where superhero comics just take themselves very seriously. At no point does this have reverence for anyone or anything involved, and that is what makes it work perfectly. Solid B from me.
At the time it came out, as a teenager who was very serious about my superhero serious time, right. I had a hard time accepting what this was. But now as an adult who kind of, at this point, I'd rather watch Adam West Batman than Christian Bale Batman. No offense to Christian Bale, who's very, very talented. My tastes have slid a little more to the silly, like Batman Brave and the Bold is a really, you know what I mean? Like, I like a little bit of silliness in my comics at this point. Sometimes I'll read real serious ones, and those can be good too. But I just have a little more affinity for, like, okay, this is just, we're going, it's a little spooky, it's a little wacky, but we're going to have just zany adventure. And it's not Watchmen. It's not trying to be.
No.
But it is the best comic series where Captain America turns into a werewolf that I'm aware of.
You dang right.
I agree.
All right.
Hey, you know what though? They should get Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. I don't care what it costs. If you have to feed everyone in Africa to make Alan Moore do it, just do it and have them do Capwolf. You know, Capwolf 2. Let's deconstruct it. A comedian Capwolf has died in New York. Glib's a great one. He would make it just glib. Like it would
I like that.
Probably be like Capwolf had a Saturday morning cartoon. That would be my guess.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, this brings our discussion of Man and Wolf, Captain America's 402 through 408, issues 402 through 408. Yes, commonly known as Capwolf. To a close. Let's go ahead and get into plugs. So, Dean Compton, Unspoken Decade, tell them all about it.
All right, well, we're at unspokendecade.com. We're very active on our Facebook group. Just look for Unspoken Decade. We're not going to have anything to do with X going forward. That's stupid. So give me a Blue Sky invite already.
Blue Sky.
I want a Blue Sky invite. I've been very good.
All right, then. All right. I heard Jason Aaron has one that he'd send to you.
I don't
no.
I know Zork cares who I am.
No.
Vice versa.
All right. Matthew Price, tell them all about Speeding Bullet Comics.
Yeah, we are here. Whoop, that was loud. In Norman, Oklahoma, 614 North Porter. You can come by and get your comic books if you happen to be in town Wednesday through Sunday. You can find us online at speedingbulletcomics.com. You can also follow me at matthewlprice.com, or you can read my relatively new Substack page, which has a link that doesn't mean anything. MatthewD2T3S.substack.com, updating generally on Wednesday and Friday. So that's where you can follow.
All
And I'm also on Facebook, and I don't know, I haven't been on X, turned it into X. I would just say maybe Facebook and Instagram are better bets nowadays.
All right. Well, hey, for the Unspoken Issues podcast, you could go back into the archive. We have all sorts of great shows out there. We celebrated the Ultraverse launch titles, where it was me and my good buddy Evan Bevins and Chris Armstrong got together and talked about the launch titles. Plus,
no!
there it is. And the Exiles. If you get a chance, go back and check out our discussion on Punisher Pariah. That was our latest airing as far as we just recorded here. So anyway, yeah, check that out. Dean Compton is unleashed on that episode. As for the Source Material Comics podcast, that's where you can find we're just talking about comic books of any era. Recently, I think it was me and Mark Radlich talked Hawkeye Freefall, which was a great book. I had a good time talking about naked LMDs and Bullseye posing as Ronin. It was pretty insane, but a lot of fun. We are going to get out of there. We're going to get out of here. Going to get out of there. Going to get out of everywhere. That is Dean Compton. Down there's Matthew Price. I'm Jesse Starcher. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us. Unspoken Issues is part of the UnspokenDecade.com, the home for 90s comics, blogs, and podcasts. Unspoken Issues also has a Facebook group you can join if you are interested. Just search the Unspoken Issues podcast and request to join. All of this would not be possible without W2Mnet.com and the Radulich Broadcasting Network, so make sure to seek them out for more podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to share, and we look forward to entertaining you again soon.